PHLY Eagles podcast on a Monday afternoon, a playoff Monday, 1 week away from the Eagles' trip to Tampa Bay for the wild card round. They are favorites on the road. Everybody's feeling good about this Eagles team heading into the playoffs. Zach, how are you?
Excited for the show. Doing well. I'm similar to Nick Sirianni. Probably didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I didn't get a lot either, but woke up energized. For the week, for the game ahead, for 5 shows breaking down the game, for some good guests, and for today's show, of course. Yeah, that was on Friday.
Well, so. I know, but we only saw you on remote yesterday. Now you're in studio showing off that bad boy.
Yeah, it's been.
What number you go on the sides?
Go 1 on the sides.
1 on the sides. Okay.
Yeah, faded up. But with this,
1 on the sides, faded up. Okay.
Well, with this new job, I'm trying to. The job's not new anymore, actually. But it's been harder to get the routine for when I go in. We don't have to get into all that. But
we're already here.
No, it's just the schedule's different because we're in studio every day, right? So there's less like the days when I have flexibility aren't necessarily the corresponding days. So
but an interesting point now that you got this on Friday, and Deniz made an interesting point, and he was curious why are you, when you're working in the city, why are you booking your haircuts in Conshohocken instead of in the city when you used to have a barber in the city? Why can't you go back to that guy?
You're really giving all the information now. I mean,
is that all the information?
Honestly, it's just routine oriented.
Okay.
Maybe ease of parking. I used to walk to the barbershop.
Okay, yeah, I could buy that.
Now that I moved.
I could buy that.
Yeah, so it's harder to find parking where I used to go. I don't know. Honestly, I moved. I found a place to cut my hair near there. That's it. So okay. I think that's the end of the story.
And they do a good job. Clearly.
I'll let you and the audience enjoy it decide. So
okay. Zach, we just heard from Nick Sirianni, and just like I had correctly predicted your question in the press conference yesterday on the postgame show, which you can still watch on the PHLY YouTube feed, we correctly predicted Nick was going to come out in this press conference flashing a little Super Bowl swag. He's going Super Bowl visor for this press conference.
Yeah, so he's done that a few times this year. I do ask you because you guys talked about it, and I made the reference during my hit yesterday that he kind of talked about all the success they've had, and a not so subtle reference there. Was this the top visor on the pile, do you think?
It's absolutely intentional.
Okay, it's absolutely intentional. Now, if it's intentional, he could have turned his head a little bit more.
Want to be too obvious.
Yeah, okay. Because when he walks from the
presumably
angle,
he's also been wearing it around the office all day.
But I imagine he has a
not
pile.
Necessarily, I don't know.
Yeah, he has a pile of visors, right? And this is.
You think he has a pile of visors?
Oh, I would imagine. You think he goes
you think
with the
his
same
office
visor?
Is just a pile of different headwear?
I don't think that's all his office is, but I imagine he has something by his door with hats and visors, and he just grabs it and puts it on. You think he's intentional about his visor choices?
I think he's intentional about everything.
Really? Okay.
You think that was an accident after we predicted it yesterday?
I don't think it was an accident.
Yeah.
I liked your question today to Nick.
Okay.
I thought it was spot on. The question that Bo asked was what he thought. When I say he, what Nick thought when he watched that Week 3 film against Tampa Bay, because similar to Nick, I watched some of that film today. I mean, I kind of did like this skim watching. I don't skim read, but I skim watch, if that makes sense.
Do you do the condensed game? Is that what you do?
Well, I wanted to look at from the All-22 today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I was mainly interested in the defense. I wasn't as interested in the offensive plays.
Sure.
And
when you were doing this, were you wearing like swag that you acquired at the Super Bowl last year?
I didn't acquire swag at the Super Bowl last year. Did you?
I don't know, like a Super Bowl program or something like that. There's a few things in the media and the press box, right?
There's a Super Bowl program on my coffee table. Yeah.
Okay, so you were sort of leaning into that.
Well, no, but that's
Maybe you had a tab open of your post game story from that game,
from the Bucks game or from the Super Bowl game?
no, from the Super Bowl.
Oh,
You're doing the same thing. You're trying to infuse that confidence into yourself, knowing that you have been to the big show.
Yeah, I'm not trying to infuse that confidence. I mean, what's it? Stay ready, so you don't need to get ready, right?
Okay.
I mean, I've tried to treat every week like a Super Bowl, but we are in the postseason, so we lift the game up a little bit more. The problem is, I have some of these features I've been holding for the playoffs. I don't think anyone wants to read some of these right now. I mean, if I drop a few of these,
that's a lesson to you. Don't hold those bad boys. Strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah, but the flip side is striking when the interest is greatest. I dropped some of my better stories last year during the playoffs, not during like the Eagles Titans week.
Yeah, but I think if you knew that team was better, you could do that. You can't afford to do that with this year's team. You can only do that if you believe in the team.
Yeah, when they were 10-1, I thought they were gonna make some noise. I agree. I did not think they were gonna be 11-6 when they were 10-1. I don't know if anyone did except you, perhaps.
Even I didn't think they'd be this bad.
He thought 12-5.
Well, we literally did. The worst case scenario is they go 2-2, and they went 1-3.
Yes, you're right.
So,
and we kept talking about these last two games, like, oh, they'll have a chance, or the last three games, they'll have a chance to figure it out. Then
you're gonna rest guys.
Exactly. This is brutal, and it's funny because you get texts, you get calls. You see flex. I was at IKEA on Saturday. I saw a listener.
Wow, big flex.
What
were you getting at IKEA?
What was I getting at IKEA?
Yeah. I'm curious.
Like some household supplies. Yeah.
Like furniture, or when you say household supplies, I feel like that's misleading.
Yeah, like little things. I was getting the kids' night lights.
Oh, okay.
Stuff like that.
Okay.
So someone
solo mission, or did you bring the kids with you?
No, it was just me.
Okay.
It was just me. They
were some meatballs.
I did not. Sloan had her birthday party. We had his first day of basketball. They were having a little quiet time, if you will.
Smart. Yeah, gotta load up.
And Emily was like taking a nap, and so I was like, all right, I'm gonna run a few errands.
You had that
here.
productive itch. You needed to get something done.
I very rarely have a free Saturdays or a free hour or two Saturdays, so I did that. Anyways, that's besides the point.
Just your luck, though, that you had a free hour on a Saturday and there was no college football to watch.
No, there was NFL though, but it wasn't a great game. The early game wasn't a great game because they were sit. So, anyways, back to what I was saying.
And how did the birthday party go?
Went great, but I had to juggle. It was Reed's first day of basketball.
Yeah.
Can't be two places at once. So I kind of spread myself a little too thin in both areas. Didn't see enough of basketball. Didn't get enough of the birthday party.
Okay.
Anyways,
but Sloan had a good time.
She was
That's
thrilled.
all that matters.
Yeah, that is all that matters. Yes. Anyways, as I was saying, I was in IKEA. I was at I was at a local coffee shop getting Emily coffee yesterday morning, and
what a good husband.
And I ran in both places. I ran into listeners of the show.
Not the same listener.
No, different listeners.
Okay.
Yeah. So awesome to see, right?
I hope you didn't spill your coffee when you ran into him.
No, but I felt bad because I was kind of like unkempt. Right? Like it was one of those I hadn't showered and gotten in the game day attire yet, but I got up, got her.
Like when Lee saw me walking to move my sister's car early in the morning.
Yes. He thought you were a homeless guy. Yeah. Yes. So how did I get down this path?
I have no idea.
I'm still catching up from the lack of sleep, but I was talking about hearing from listeners. Anyways, I forget that train of thought, but
okay,
yeah,
well, here we are.
I saw two listeners, viewers. Appreciated them. Asked them both what we can do better. They both like the show.
Okay, let me ask you this. I do want this week to be more about the game that is upcoming. We're going to have a long time when the season is over to unpack everything that has happened and talk big picture stuff.
Yep.
But just for this segment,
Mm-hmm.
let's do it a little bit.
Okay.
Okay. After this, we can put it to bed for most of the week. After like sleeping on what happened yesterday, like as the rest of the league is making changes on this Black Monday, as they call it, what is your like level of expectation for what kind of change will be coming this offseason?
I think major change at this point, I would say with the coaching staff, not the head coach, but the staff itself. I mean, certainly a new defensive coordinator. And then I think some position coaches. And then I think a decent amount of roster changes. I could see a scheme change on defense. I'm still waiting to see on the offensive coordinator. As I was saying to Jamie on the show yesterday, I think the team might have a different interpretation of the offense than the public does. When you look at some of the data about the offense, the way they ended some of their rank, I mean, they're a top 10 offense. They probably want to be a top 5 offense.
Top 10 is not good enough.
Sure, but I don't think
it's not.
Yeah, but I don't think that when they do an assessment of what's wrong this season, I do think they're going to want some more offensive creativity. But defensively, I think
I do not agree that they're going to be happy with the state of the offense. Content even with the state of the offense.
Okay.
Given the investment there, given the health that they had, given the relative underperformance, I do not think they will. And given that they know and care about the offense being the thing that carries them as an organization, I do not think they will be happy with that.
Oh, yeah. Look, I think this offense should have been better, without a doubt. I'm simply saying I think defense is going to be more of a priority. And I'm not sure that they would necessarily like fire Brian Johnson unless they had I'll put it this way. Offensively, I don't think they're going to change for change's sake. I think it would need to be a targeted approach to fixing it, or it would need to be a deliberate approach to fixing it. I think defensively, it could be a dramatic change. Obviously, coordinator, position coaches, scheme.
Yeah, I think.
And personnel.
I also don't think that I would rule out Matt Patricia returning as the defensive coordinator.
Someone told me that the other day, and I was like,
how can they
sell that?
I mean, I agree with you, but I think they believe that like if he was given the reign to build the defense that he wants to build, it might be different.
Then you should have given him the reign to build the defense he wanted to build.
Well, I agree with you.
Like
of course it was ridiculous to do it to midseason, and it would be an impossible PR sell. But I think there are people in that building who might want that. I think where the offense comes into play is that we have talked about, whenever the season ends, there are going to be these, they're going to have these sit-down conversations. And I think that is where they might really butt heads.
Sure.
Is that Nick might have the position you are saying that we were still a top 10 offense. We were still very good. And I think Jeffrey might have the position that is table stakes given what we had. And you mentioned Brian Johnson. I do think that Jalen Hurts, question here is very relevant to what they decide to do moving forward, because Jalen's not going anywhere. And so they have to do what is best for maximizing him as a player, because he is like the constant here given the contract he signed.
Yeah, so two thoughts there. Well, I'll take the Hurts thing too, because you said it. You're absolutely right. Hurts, everything's about Hurts. About maximizing Hurts, about keeping Hurts happy, all of that. Yeah, Jalen is central to any of those questions. To the Nick Sirianni point, I think where you kind of hit it on the head is that I think the Eagles hired Nick Sirianni for the type of coach and leader he is. And I think Nick thinks a lot of it had to do with the type of offensive mind that he is. In other words, I think Nick feels a certain sense of ownership about the offense itself, right? And as he should. He came up as an offensive coach. He was an offensive coordinator when they hired him. Even though he's not calling plays, he tells you all the time, this is his system. This is his offense. He says he was hired for his offense, right? And so if the Eagles come in and say, your offense needs to look like that offense over there, Nick might say, wait a second, this is my offense, right? But again, I really think that the focus is going to be on the defense. And I also think a lot of it has to do with what happens on Monday and perhaps the week after that. But I do think that when I've heard people talk, people who know this stuff about Patricia, right? Like don't don't give up on the idea of Patricia being there. To me, it's so befuddling. And
I agree.
certainly though, it's not pulled out of thin air when I hear that.
Yeah. Now let me ask you this other one, which I think I asked you about last week. You think there's a part of Jeffrey that would entertain a trade for Bill Belichick?
No.
You don't think there's a part of him? He has.
I imagine there's a part of any owner.
He is Patriots obsessed and always has been. They have sort of been trying to borrow from that playbook a little bit. And I was thinking a lot about what you said about Jeffrey's reflection on Andy leaving and the success that he has had after leaving it. And I feel like there's a connected thread there between we get this guy who has proven to be a great head coach in a fresh surrounding and able to support him better. I don't know.
Maybe not. I mean, he's never hired.
That's a daydream. That's a thought that occurs to me as I lie my head on the pillow.
He's never hired a coach with NFL head coaching experience.
Good point.
He hired. I mean, Chip Kelly was the only coach he hired who had head coaching experience outside of Calvary Baptist in Louisiana, right? So
great pull.
Thank you. So it would surprise me because I know this about Jeffrey. He is very proud of his ability to identify coaches, to identify, as he would like to say, and it is accurate. This isn't said in like a mocking way, right? This is completely accurate. Coaches who don't get interviewed elsewhere, who the league is missing out on, but they do. The last two coaches that they hired received no interviews anywhere else, right? And they both led the Eagles to the Super Bowl. So I think that it would surprise me at this stage of Jeffrey Lurie's ownership to be making a move that is more closely associated with like the desperate owners, like the owners that can't figure out the coaching cycle. And so it's like, let's go get Bill Belichick because we failed doing X, Y, and Z. I don't think Jeffrey views his coaching hires in that vein.
But there is a little bit of, I know, and this is one maybe the silliest thing that we've entertained, but there is also an element of it's a little bit like the Chip Kelly situation where he was the hot guy for everybody and we won that won that recruitment. There's also like, if you just think about the roster that they have built, right? Well, let's go get the Alabama guys and the Georgia guys, the guys from these big programs. I mean, Jalen Hurts is like, if Bill Belichick could program a human being to be his quarterback, it would be Jalen Hurts, right?
It'd probably be Tom Brady.
There's a bit of a match. Yeah. No, they broke up at the end. In the end,
yeah.
I don't mean as a player. I mean as a person. As a just walking cliche. I don't know. I think it's crazy, but
I'm entertaining this conversation because we have a show with people watching and people listening. But I think that's like 4 exits too far ahead right now.
Yeah, I think so too. Just sharing our thoughts. All right, before we move on, Zach, let's talk a little bit about Rocket Money. Everybody's making their still have time to make your New Year's resolutions. Save a little money where you can, be a little bit more responsible. One way to do that is with Rocket Money, because Rocket Money will comb through all of those subscriptions that you have and see if maybe you're wasting some money, paying for things that you don't use anymore, all that good stuff. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills. Come on, Zach.
Sorry about that.
I can see all of my subscriptions in one place, and if I see something I don't want, I can cancel it with one tap. I never have to get on the phone with customer service. They'll even try to get you a refund for the last couple months of wasted money to negotiate to lower your bills. All you have to do is take a picture of your bill, and Rocket Money takes care of the rest. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has helped save its members an average of $720 a year with over $500 million in canceled subscriptions. Stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions by going to rocketmoney.com/PHLY. That's rocketmoney.com/PHLY. rocketmoney.com/PHLY. And shout out to John with the super chat who says, Bill Belichick, come on down.
Let me tell you guys about Game Time because I received a nice text yesterday from Mr. V who
Steve Vallos' father?
Who went to a Northwestern women's basketball game and used Game Time app to help get tickets. And what code did he put in? PHLY. And what does that give you? $20 off your first purchase. Because buying tickets to your favorite event should not be stressful. And Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. Next Monday, it's Martin Luther King Day. If you're doing service in the community, but then thereafter you want to check out the Sixers game before the Eagles game that night, you can go onto the Game Time app, find the last-minute ticket deals, and if you want to know what the seat view will look like from that seat, you just search it. You see the image of the seat view. It's terrific. And you never have to worry about the price because it's the lowest price guarantee. And there's event cancellation protection and job loss protection. Get images of the seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect. Buy tickets in a matter of seconds, just 2 taps, and you're set. Tickets are sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through your email. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code PHLY for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code PHLY for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
All right, Zach, a few bits of Eagles news today.
Yeah, let's hear.
Poking through. Why don't you tell us as the Stone Cold Newsman?
Well, let's start with the injuries. Sidney Brown, out for the year, torn ACL. He put it on his Instagram, and just in case you thought that Sidney Brown was misleading you on your Instagram, Nick Sirianni confirmed. Okay?
That was helpful. Yeah.
Yes, he said, I can confirm that one. A.J. Brown, Cam Jurgens, Devontae Smith, they're going to see as the week goes on.
Jalen Hurts.
With them, Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni said, he went back in the game. There are reports out today that it's not fractured. Nick Sirianni said it's something that he's going to have to deal with, but Sirianni said he had goosebumps thinking about Hurts looking at him in the eyes and saying, I'm going in for that one drive, and then he got taken out. Yeah.
Goosebumps. This terrible offense.
Yeah.
Can't wait to go in and not know a blitz is coming again.
So that was dislocated, that middle finger, and got popped back in, and it's something that we'll have to see how it goes. But I think as far as the status for this weekend's games, the players to watch are Smith, Brown, and Jurgens. And we should have more in the coming days. Because it's a Monday night game, they won't get on the practice field until Thursday. So we will know then. Now,
I think we could say, without knowing, that we would guess that those guys are going to play.
Yes, and I know A.J. Brown's the one in question because that's like the newest injury. When I saw A.J. yesterday, it did not look like a serious injury. Again, I'm not a doctor, but I've covered guys with serious injuries, and it did not look that way with A.J.
Sidney Brown.
Okay.
Bummer, obviously.
Yeah, especially this time, because now this is your entire offseason training camp. Yeah.
Right. He's, realistically not going to be back until the middle of next season, if at all. Right? I mean...
ACLs typically are like 9 months now, but...
Okay. So that would put him in the middle of next season.
Either early in next season. Yeah.
I mean, once the season has started, it's in the middle of the season.
Really? If you come back week 2, is that the middle of the season?
I mean, when did Kyler Murray come back? He suffered one the exact same time, right? He came back in mid-October? November?
Yeah, I mean, Carson was back week 3. He suffered his December 14th. So this one was...
so 3 weeks later. So that's week 6.
Okay. All right. Sorry to argue with us semantics. Middle of the season.
I mean, you had to get in there, so let's argue it.
Okay. Okay.
New bet. Well, I think we should keep let's keep a tally at the start of the year. You say Sidney Brown will be back in September, basically.
Yes.
And I will take after September for Sidney Brown's return.
We'll make that bet.
Okay, let's put that on. We're gonna have to keep track of these as the season goes on, as the offseason goes on. This is obviously a bummer. I think of the rookie class, he probably had the second most encouraging season so far,
And have been coming on recently.
and had been coming on recently. What is a real bummer about this is that you now cannot enter the offseason penciling him in as a starting safety, right? You could have said, okay, we got Reed Blankenship and Sidney Brown. We'll bring in a veteran who can compete there. Maybe we'll draft somebody and we feel good. You can't do that now. And so that is a significant little domino for their offseason, aside from feeling very badly for the guy himself.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And now you have two spots in the middle of that defense. Nakobe Dean, a linebacker, and Sidney Brown at safety, where these were guys you were hoping would be your starters going into next season. Positions where you're not prioritizing a lot of money. You're not prioritizing your high assets, and 2 third-round picks here in the past 2 years, and neither one of them you would say is definite for like a week 1 in the starting lineup. So that's not good, because it's the highest they've drafted a safety in a few years. It's the highest they drafted a linebacker in a few years. And when you look at that depth chart for next year, that's not strong.
A few more super chats. We've got Mr. Rudy Poo, actually, who says, sorry, fellas, Nicky Cutlets has lost the locker room. Why do they bother even showing up on Monday? And Danish Charania says, Bo, what do you think about the Ocho's comments that the Eagles are playing possum, getting their bodies ready and being simple until it matters?
That'd be a bold strategy.
Yeah, I feel like that would be very bold when you could have just, beaten 2 teams and gotten the 2 seed.
Yeah.
But, well, I guess we'll see. One other piece of news, Zach, for the Eagles as teams try to fill their potential openings in the front office.
Yeah, the Washington Commanders requested an interview with ALLCITY. The Eagles' assistant general manager has been with the organization for 16 years, came up on the data analytics side. His role has since increased into more player evaluation, and the Eagles have 2 assistant general managers, John Ferrari and ALLCITY. And for the way we think of the general manager position, Alec handles more of those responsibilities. John Ferrari deals more with kind of like the administrative component of it, right? So the Eagles have tried to build this pipeline in their front office, and you know that because they've lost talented people. Ian Cunningham, who's now the Bears assistant GM, formerly with the Eagles, he's on the interview circuit this offseason. Howby's the number 2 guy with the Eagles, and so that's one to pay attention to for a few reasons. First off, he's talented and respected in the building. He has a long track record. He's been somewhat of a polarizing figure, and that's definitely fair to say. He's worked with 4 different head coaches in different capacities. But where I say he's been linked to Washington for a few weeks now, frankly, because Josh Harris is the controlling owner there, has connections to the Eagles, has connections to Harvard. Right now, the one thing that I will add to this is that the big news for Washington today is they hired Bob Myers and Rick Spielman to help oversee this search.
2 guys competing to pull a Dick Cheney and get the job themselves, probably.
I mean, it'd be smart to hire Bob Myers. That guy's incredible. I mean, if I'm serious, I can send you. I have
I could send you. I got a whole file of podcasts that Bob Myers has been on.
Yes,
blow you away.
Not just a file of podcast. He has his own podcast on leadership. I would really recommend the Bob Iger episode. That's a strong one. But no, if I looked in my text and I typed Bob Myers, you would see a collection of Bob Myers articles that I've sent out to different people over the years. Bob Myers could put a winning culture together in any sport, I believe. Has a terrific track record, former agent. But Bob Myers is not the football executive there. He is hiring the football executive. I was bringing that up as a way of saying,
you soak all this stuff up so much. It's like, it's crazy.
How so? What's crazy about it?
It's like, would Bob Myers be who Bob Myers is if he didn't have Steph Curry? in your mind? Who he is in your mind?
I mean, would Steph Curry be who Steph Curry is if he didn't have Bob Myers putting that team together?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think Bob Myers is really talented in that role. I'm always a player person first. I don't think his success is because of Steph Curry. No. But I agree. Steph Curry would still be Steph Curry without Bob Myers. I just think I think Bob Myers is really successful and like really smart. And
so his questions are going to be, how are you going to get the best quarterback in NFL history on your team? Because that's what I did. I got the best shooter in NBA history, and that's really what's propelled me to the top.
I think you should do research on Bob Myers' history, like before. There's a lot there in terms of like what his role was when he got to the Warriors.
I'm not saying he did a bad job. I'm just I'm not saying he's going to come in and like fix the NFL. I don't know.
I'm not saying okay. Anyways, the point that I was getting at before you derailed me there is that
maybe he'll hire Bob Iger.
I mean, you could do worse there too. But what?
I don't want to take us totally off the rail.
You should read his book.
You're so just impressed with accomplishment. Like,
no, I'm not. You see, this is the thing. You're so like against people in position of power. I'm not just picking random people in these roles. I've read Bob Iger's book. I've researched this. Like, anyways, we don't have to go down that path here. What I was saying is that this could change the search from like maybe organizations that Josh Harris knows or has connections with, or relationships that he might have, because he's not overseeing the search. It's now Bob Myers and Rick Spielman overseeing the search. That's the only point I was going to make. That is kind of an odd pair. Yeah. I don't know all the details there. I've frankly been consumed today with Eagles stuff, so I haven't necessarily delved into that. But I could say this for ALLCITY. I think from what I've heard, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this. He's really grown, especially in these past few years. Perhaps we had an article a few years ago that detailed some of the front office dynamics, and obviously there's change in the front office. There's been change in the coaching staff and some of the people in the building there. But certainly since then, he's become the assistant general manager. His role has increased during that time, and I can't imagine this will be the last interview he has.
Yeah, I would also say that we wrote that article, but also like the position that he was in at that time. Mm-hmm. When you are like running the analytics
That's what I'm saying.
group, yeah. It is a combative thing by nature, probably, right? When you're trying to work with like football guys mm-hmm. by nature. And so the fact that the Eagles like continue to promote him and he has been more mm-hmm. on the football side probably says a lot of that. And my understanding is that Howie does a very good job with the people who are at that level of like opening the door a little bit to some of the like GM decision making things that would not, we wouldn't see.
Yeah,
that are beyond like who to draft and who to sign.
And the thing I'll say about Alec is it's similar to what I've said about like Denard Wilson as a potential defensive coordinator. When I talk about Denard Wilson, look at the different people that he's been exposed to different styles, to different personalities, right? So when he worked in that Greg Williams, Jim Schwartz type scheme, then he worked in the Jonathan Gannon one. Now he's in Baltimore, right? So you have like different influences, kind of building your philosophy. So ALLCITY, even though he's worked only in the Eagles building, the different head coaches he's been exposed to would in theory give him perspective that maybe some other people don't have, and these are like awfully successful coaches. Andy Reid might be the best coach in the NFL. And he was here, I believe Alec was here from like 2009, 2010. So he saw that last run that Andy Reid's teams had before it fell apart in 11 and 12. And then Chip, He certainly saw a different way of doing this, right, and different philosophies, some of which still remain from an organizational perspective. and then Doug, where they won a Super Bowl, and now Sirianni. And such a big part of being a GM in today's football is how you interact with the head coach and the owner.
Yes.
And so being able to interact with the owner, and now Calby has experience dealing with the ownership level, but then that's why I bring up the different head coaches. Having exposure to different styles of head coach, different personalities as head coach would theoretically be beneficial compared to if you're interviewing a candidate who's kind of only worked for the same head coach or has kind of followed that person around.
And I also think what you talked about, like if you read like the Albert Breer list of GM candidates or whatever, because he was the analytics guy, he's just sort of just pegged as like Mr. Analytics, which as you said, like has not been necessarily the case of late. If you were a GM candidate who could have the pick of their job, Washington, Chargers, Panthers, Raiders, which job would you want?
Well, the Chargers job would be the most appealing from like the roster in place, because I believe Justin Herbert's a franchise quarterback, and they have a lot of cap issues to deal with. That ownership, you hear different things about them, right? And that's a big part of the GM job. You also, if you're being hired first, you have say in who you're working with as a head coach. I would like that. I frankly, though, I think Washington's the best opportunity of those available GM jobs. And the reason I say that is I don't think that roster is particularly good, but they have a lot of cap space. They have a lot of draft resources, right? They have the number 2 pick. They have 2 picks in the top of the second round, their own pick and Chicago's pick. And you have cap space to make a change. I think there's ownership that is committed to you, and you have a say in hiring your head coach, because the GM coach dynamic is really important. Carolina is a tough one. It's only if you believe in Bryce Young, then I can see the appeal there. But in that job, you don't have your first round pick next year. You don't have your second round pick next year. You have bad talent on the roster. Your best player, Brian Burns, is a pending free agent. So you really must have conviction.
And
in
even
the
if
quarterback.
you think that ownership is going to be sort of like guilted into being a little bit more patient than it has been, doesn't seem like a fun guy to work for.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to give some David Tepper anecdotes, but we don't have to. We don't have to go down
brass
that
balls.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Like that's never a good sign as the direct report, right?
Yeah.
Which job would you want? The Chargers?
It's tough. I mean, I do see the upside in Washington, because there's also like the blessing of like very low expectations from the fan base. Like if you could just make that team like they have 2 winning seasons in a row, like you're a god. And there's obviously like even if you and I can disagree about Josh Harris, he's no Daniel Snyder, and so like there was real room for upside there.
And he's made like significant financial commitments to the Sixers. So if what you want out of your owner is someone who's willing to invest in winning, then that's a good sign. Now, the Vegas job, you get to live in Vegas, so that's pretty good.
I mean,
but
this is all you.
But the ownership has
good for the income tax, right? The state taxes.
Yeah, there's no state income tax.
Okay,
there you go. You're on top of that. I'm impressed. Yeah, that's very beneficial right there, and that could be beneficial in lowering free agents. A new practice facility that opened 2 years ago, a new stadium that opened 2 years ago, but ownership's been kind of odd there.
And that's just the hair.
Yeah, and you need to figure out the quarterback spot, and they were too good this year to like get the quarterback in the way that you would like. You're not drafting at the top, so that's not an ideal job. But there's only 32 of these, and there's really only 31 of them because Jared Jones is the GM in Dallas.
And you would hear that, like from a GM standpoint, there are fewer openings, and so there are fewer opportunities to jump. But there are also, as I think your boy would complain about on his podcast, there's less. Like you don't get a second job as a GM often.
True.
Like you could get a second job as head coach. So you want to be a little bit more picky.
Sure, but you also don't know when that opportunity is going to come. Yeah.
I do think from the Hallaby standpoint, the things that you and I believe in terms of like how to win in the NFL and like how to build a roster, I would imagine that he is someone who's going to believe in those same things.
Sure. And the one thing I'll say too about Carolina, because even though it's not attractive, it's probably an attractive division, right?
Sure.
And that's something you have to think of. Like if you're taking,
I think you could turn that team around actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Easier than it might look.
Exactly. If you're taking the Vegas job, you have Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert, and I don't know what's going to happen in Denver, but that's just a different situation.
What about New England?
What about New England? I mean, we'll see. I'm reading.
What are you reading? What do we got?
I don't know.
What's got you off track here?
Yeah, whoever's ripping on me today.
I saw somebody was ripping on me too, so we move on, Zach.
Yeah. So the New England job, I mean, that's the head coaching job will be a tough one to follow. I imagine they have a plan in place if Belichick leaves, and my guess is that plan's Mike Vrabel, but I could be wrong. They've been talking about Jared Mayo there. The GM situation, yeah, I mean, look, Robert Kraft is one of the most successful owners in modern football history, but there's other jobs I would prefer over that Patriots job.
Yeah, I mean, again, Robert Kraft would not be one of the most successful owners in NFL history if he didn't have Tom Brady.
Okay.
Just saying.
Okay. I mean, he had the foresight to hire Belichick and make a trade for Belichick.
Okay.
Did a good job there.
Yeah.
And he was able to sustain, look, we don't need to go down. Read Seth Wickersham's book. Okay. And it's
a great book.
There's flaws among all these people, and then there's good characteristics among all these people. I don't think
I'm just saying, like, without literal Tom Brady, how many Super Bowls is Robert Kraft winning?
Well, probably. I mean, Tom Brady's the best player in NFL history.
Yeah.
So, yeah, obviously, Tom Brady's the most important of those three. I think we've seen that without a doubt. Owners don't win Super Bowls. GMs don't win Super Bowls. Coaches don't win Super Bowls. Players win Super Bowls. Actually, I would say organizations, but players win Super Bowls.
Okay. All right. Before we move on, Zach, let's talk a little bit about Bagels & Co., because that's how many Super Bowls Robert Kraft would have won without Tom Brady. A big old bagel. Bagel & Co., they have big old bagels. That's part of their deal. Bagels & Co., Brooklyn-style bagels made right here in Philly. They've got the biggest bagels in Philly, with a large variety, usually around 15 to 20 different types to choose from. Seasonal bagels as well. For instance, they had a Christmas flavored bagel in December. We'll see what they've got cooked up for, I don't know, maybe St. Patrick's Day. Maybe they'll have a green bagel. Large variety of cream cheeses as well, over 30 different flavors of cream cheese and schmears. For instance, they do an Eagles cream cheese, and they do a 76ers cream cheese as well. It's an affordable brand. You get a lot of food for cheap, and in today's inflationary world, they think that is key. So, for the best Brooklyn-style bagels made right here in Philly, head to www.thebagelsandco.com/store-locator to find the closest Bagels & Co. near you. All right, Zach. Having thought about that game yesterday, the big ol' no-show that they had up in MetLife, what's your level of expectation for them being able to turn things around this week against Tampa Bay?
So I look at last week's game in conjunction with the game the previous week. And the reason I say
it's hard to divorce those two.
Yeah, because I was listening to Ike Reese on the radio when I was coming in today, and on WIP, and Ike said that those guys didn't want to be out there yesterday, right? They're not going to say that publicly, but at that point, when they're not out there trying to win that game, they're out there trying to not get hurt.
Right. There's the clips of Bradley Roby's quote unquote tackle where he's not really even trying, but
yeah, it's so you can't. So his point, and then for most of the game, they're playing without three of their four best offensive weapons, right? So but that game is concerning. Look. If they beat the Cardinals the week before,
I totally agree.
And the situation was like, and the
And
stakes
they
were still the same.
right, exactly.
And they played that way. I'd be like, look, this is week 18. It's what matters is the playoffs.
Right.
But given the context of the way they crapped the bed against Arizona, the way that they were inconsistent in the second half against the Giants, the way that they lost to Seattle, right? That was concerning to me, because what that showed me yesterday was that either they're not responding to their coach, or they're not good enough to just like show up. And either one's concerning, right? Because Nick kept saying these guys haven't quit. Like, these guys haven't quit. Well, if they haven't quit, then the alternative is that's the product.
They stink, yeah.
And if that's the product, then that's a bad thing. Because as Fletcher Cox said after the game, they lost to a really bad football team. Like, the Giants are not good. And
Wink Martindale back on the market.
Yeah, look. If you want someone who blitzes, hire Wink, and he'd be entertaining for us. But
I think that's exactly right. It is, you cannot divorce what happened in week 17 with what happened in week 18. If that had just been like a blip in the road before the playoffs, fine. But given everything that came before it, and like, AJ Brown having to pound the table for Nick Sirianni before that, you cannot believe that this team can just turn it on. And I also, like, it's not just the players, it's the coaches. I know we've talked about it, but the fact that they did not have a better plan for those blitzes in the first half of the game, when the game mattered still and Jalen Hurts was in there, it is mind-boggling that we are still here having these conversations this late in the season.
I am with you. Now, for my confidence for this week, I keep going back to like the Bucs. The Bucs won 9 games this year. They scored 3 field goals yesterday against the Panthers in a must-win game. Okay, that's it. The only real exposure I had to the Bucs this year, outside of clips here and there, was that Week 3 game when the Eagles totally overmatched them. We've been saying for a few weeks that the NFC South is a susceptible division, and that if you have the 5 seed, like, that first-round matchup's not too bad. Now, the Eagles, the Cardinals are one of the worst teams in the league. The Giants are one of the worst teams in the league. Both those teams didn't just beat them. They destroyed them. So, yeah, there's little reason to believe that the Eagles can go down there and all of a sudden flip a switch, except the Eagles are a much more talented team. And you don't want to say that they can't flip a switch when if they're able to, because you also don't want to be like, once this team gets momentum, look, they have a franchise quarterback. If AJ and Devontae are healthy, the weapons they have are...
You're already talking about they could play a home game.
Well, let me explain this to the audience here, okay? The two other playoff games this week,
spicy matchups.
I don't think I think that Green Bay can be a tough matchup for Dallas, and that Jordan Love's hot right now, right? And we've seen Mike McCarthy, bleep the bed in the postseason.
Wow.
And
he did what?
and
Mike,
I suppose
put it away.
I suppose you can put different verbs in there. Sorry, I'm on 3.5 hours of sleep right now. And then
there's a mental picture for you.
Only you would think that way.
Mike, what are you doing? You got a game to coach. Get out of there.
Okay. Let's gather ourselves here. And then the Rams are a hot team. And I think that Sam Laporta injury for the Lions is a huge injury that affects their offense. So what I said is that in theory, and I don't think this is going to happen.
It's literally true.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to happen. Okay? But if, like, on Saturday and Sunday, if the 6th seed and the 7th seed win, and then all of a sudden the Eagles only have to beat the Bucs to get a home playoff
If that's
game,
the case, they will definitely lose.
They'll definitely lose, because everything's set up for them.
Yes.
Yeah. But no, I do not think that's going to happen. And by the way, I see in the chat, Todd Bowles' defense matters. Look, I like Todd Bowles, and they have the 3rd highest blitz rate in the league. The Eagles are struggling against the blitz, and that's why we have 5 shows this week. We will get into it, but that Week 3 game the Eagles just were able to handle everything in that game, and I'm curious to see how that will translate.
Now, listen, certainly the Eagles have more talent, but the numbers are not like there's not a huge difference between the Eagles and Bucks even over the course of the season. Eagles are 14th in DVOA, Bucks are 18th.
Okay.
Eagles are 10th on offense against the 14th ranked Bucks defense. Bucks are 20th on offense against the 29th ranked Eagles defense. Eagles are number 1 in special teams. Bucks are 18th, but if you do weighted DVOA, which counts recency a little bit more, Eagles are 21st, Bucks are 15th. So,
good point. So why do you think the Eagles are favorites?
That's a good question. I mean, they have more name recognition. They have more talent. I can see the casual thinking that, there's
the casual.
Yeah, I mean that's.
Where do you think the sharps are thinking right now?
I think it's already moved from 2.5 to 1.5.
So that tells you.
Yeah.
Okay. So then,
I don't know.
The Eagles have given very little reason for confidence, and that quote that I had in the lead of my story today, where Sirianni says, "Yeah, we've lost 5 to 6 games." That does not discredit the other, the other 11. I mean, they're going into the post. If you believe momentum matters, they're going into the postseason with the least amount of momentum a team could ever have. I mean, it's like you have to go back to Cincinnati in the NCAA tournament when Kenyon Martin got hurt. Remember that?
Yes. And they gave him a 2 seed, like they split the baby.
Yeah, exactly. There is no momentum for the Eagles, and they've given little reason to believe that they can win this game.
Larry Love with the super chat says, have you talked to or have you looked in the face of any of the linebackers on the team? And if so, what's your opinion? I'm not 100% sure I understand the question. I'm sorry, Larry.
Yeah, I've spoken to every linebacker on that team. And when I speak to someone, I look at them in the eyes. So, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, are you surprised that Zach Cunningham didn't fix everything?
No, I'm not surprised.
I am surprised that Morrow was playing over Shaq Leonard.
So was I.
I don't get it.
And by the way, if Blankenship's hurt this week, they're definitely going to need that because Morrow wouldn't need to wear the green dot.
Tristan McCollum could do it.
Yeah, tough injuries for the Eagles.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the other player we didn't mention is Reed Blankenship. We have to see what happens there.
Okay, so set things up for us for the rest of the week here, Zach, knowing that we have we've got 5 shows this week, but the Eagles don't play until Monday, so their practice schedule is a little bit wonky.
Yeah, so...
How do you feel about having to cover another night game?
Oh, man, I was sorry for that face there. I was really hoping that the TV executives would have seen that Eagles game yesterday and been like, let's roll with CJ Stroud. I said that on the show yesterday. Yeah. Now, how do I feel about it? I feel very lucky to have this job, to be covering the NFL, to do what I enjoy doing for a living. So I'm not going to complain about it. There's a lot of people who would kill to be getting on a plane and going down there. And so I'm very grateful. That's how I feel. But as we said in last year's show, my New Year's resolution is my health. And I literally went 1 week before having my Oura Ring alert me about my sleeping problems or my lack of sleep. So, yeah, and the reason I say it is this, because we have to catch the first flight out the next morning in the off chance that they lose and they clean out the locker the next day. You have to get back. So my flight back is like 7 a.m. The game there is at 8 p.m. I'll be finished my work around 2 or 3 a.m. And so that's one of those things where you get 2 hours of sleep. You go to the airport at 5, and if you're able to fall asleep once you get back to the hotel. So then you're on an hour and a half, 2 hours of sleep, and you spend the rest of your week playing catch up. And then let's say the Eagles win, and let's say everything's chalk. Then you turn around, you fly to San Francisco on Friday. So now you're going on a cross-country flight. Your immune system's already weakened. You're in the air for 18 hours at that point between these 2 games. And so yeah, you definitely have like a cold until the combine at that point.
Now, Larry was saying what he was trying to say is he was asking if you've talked to them about whether they enjoy the scheme, basically what they think of the scheme.
Yeah, I think the only one who is like Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat are just kind of like, yeah, we're doing what we're told. And whenever a player says we're doing what we're told,
I understand that if you're playing those fronts, somebody's got to drop. Then don't play those fronts with this personnel right now. Okay, you don't need 3 defensive tackles on the field. Let them play. Let them do what they're good at. It's the one thing that they have players who are capable of doing something good on defense. Let Hassan Reddick go.
It was kind of ironic yesterday, or I don't think it was ironic. It was funny to see. It was like a case of gallows humor that after all this talk about Hassan Reddick dropping the first 2 plays, yeah,
it was ridiculous.
As if we know more than you. It is that Patriots hubris in that regard.
I think that's right. Yeah. All right, back tomorrow at 2, hoping to have some combination of Fletcher Cox and/or Brian Baldinger. And then the rest of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 10 a.m. each day. Some special guests on the way. What do you got?
Yeah. So to answer the question that you initially asked, the Eagles will return to practice on Thursday. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday will be their practice schedule. We will hear from coordinators on Wednesday. So tomorrow's show will be a day when, like we said, Brian Baldinger and/or Fletcher Cox will be great. We'll hear their perspective. And then Wednesday is when we start to kind of get into the flow of the week this week as opposed to Tuesday.
All right, so there you have it. That will do it. One more super chat before we go from Rudy Poo back in the bag. What happened after the Bills game? Team looked checked out pregame against the Niners. Was there a physical altercation or what? I haven't heard anything about a physical altercation, but if they look like a team that is exhausted, maybe that's part of it.
By the way, the Panthers requested an interview with Giants assistant GM Brandon Brown, who also came from the Eagles. So this Howie tree is spreading and is getting GM interviews elsewhere.
Catherine Raish probably going to get some interviews this time around as well. So, yeah, lots of Eagles tentacles.
Representing Montreal.
That's right.
Proud of that.
Good. All right.
Way to sell that.
I have nothing. What am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to sell that in your mind? Start singing "O Canada"?
Do you know the words?
Of course I know the words.
How do you know the words to "O Canada"?
It's like that's a shower singing song. Look, it's the best anthem there is.
You sing "O Canada" in the shower?
Absolutely. And I haven't done it in a while, but yeah, right in my vocal range.
You rip on me for reading Bob Iger's book, but you sing "O Canada" in the shower. And I'm supposed to just say that's completely normal behavior.
I never said you should say it's completely normal behavior. I don't see how they're analogous or comparable in any way. But
you think I'm nuts for reading Bob Iger's book?
No, I don't think you're nuts for reading Bob Iger's book.
For believing in what's in there?
Uncritically, yeah.
I think you were the commenter who put the YouTube comment last week that said I'm uncritical.
No, I promise you that was not me.
What's not you?
All right. I mean, "O Canada" is a jam.
I take pride in that as a half Canadian.
Yeah, I mean, way better than the Star Spangled Banner.
Be careful what you say there.
It's the truth. It's a better song.
Reasonable minds can disagree.
Okay. All right.
Francis Scott Key wrote a terrific song.
Not really. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. We will talk to you tomorrow at 2 p.m. For Zach and Julia, I'm Bo. We thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We will talk to you tomorrow. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.